Okay, welcome back. In the previous video, we actually got Debian installed, and we left off at the desktop after the first reboot, but we have not logged in for the first time. So let's go ahead and get that started. In this video, what we're going to do is talk about doing the first upgrade, or update, I should say. We're going to look at adding a couple packages, and we are also going to talk about one of the biggest differences between Debian 12 and 13. So if you want to learn what that is, make sure you watch the entire video. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and get logged in here. All right, so now we're just on a plain vanilla desktop. If you notice something, if you're used to Linux Mint, and I have nothing against Mint, I've actually contributed to Mint. I've used Mint, throughout the years. I've used Mint off and on. It's an excellent distribution. However, some people want to have that Mint experience, but they want to move on to something a little more complex or a little more complicated, or maybe something that just doesn't hold their hand quite as much as Linux Mint does. And in this video series, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go from like a Linux Mint Cinnamon type of Linux user into something that's a type 2 distribution, which is Debian here, but still has a lot of the same roots in Linux Mint. And so we'll parallel that quite a bit in this video series. So the first thing we're going to do, anytime you upgrade or install an operating system, the very first thing you want to do is run updates for the first time. It doesn't matter if it's Mac, Linux. As soon as you turn on your phone, it wants to update. And if you notice that little window that popped up just a second ago in the upper right hand corner, it's immediately telling me there are updates available. There's a step we're going to take first before we get started with that. And basically what that is currently the Debian repo mirrors are on unsecure HTTP web servers. And what we want to do is we want to change that to HTTPS. So we're actually downloading packages over a secured connection. So that's the first thing we're going to do. To do that, we're going to do sudo apt install, and it's going to be apt-transport. After you type a couple characters in, just hit tab. It'll autocomplete to the next ambiguous point. And then we're just going to start typing that again. And sure enough, it's apt-transport-https. Let's see if we can make this a little bit bigger. Where is our font? Right there. Hiding in plain sight. So I'm going to increase this a bit so we can see what's going on. Let's see if that's big enough. There we go. All right. So again, that's sudo apt install apt-transport-https. And we're going to go ahead and get this installed. Mouse out of the way. We don't need it right this second. Okay, so we got that installed. Now what we want to do is we need to change the URIs inside the preferences where the repos are actually listed. I'm going to Control L to clear the screen. If we run sudo apt update right now, notice here that this is HTTP. And what we're going to do is we're going to change that to HTTPS. We do that by sudo nano, etc apt sources.list. This is where that file is at. Okay. So I'm going to take that out. And what I like to do is, since I'm the only human that's going to read this, is I just take all the comments out first and foremost. It's important that you read those comments before you decide to remove them. I've done this so many times that I don't want to read them yet again. Okay, so we're going to do a simple search and replace. That's Control W to search and R to replace. And what we're wanting to replace is HTTP : enter. And we're going to replace that with HTTPS : enter. And notice it highlighted the first instance, and down here at the bottom says, do you want to replace this instance? Yes, no, or all. I'm going to hit A for all, and it's going to replace all 6 of those. It even tells you in the center of the screen at the bottom that it replaced 6 occurrences. All right, so we're going to control X to save. Do you want to save this buffer? Yes or no? Yes, we do. What is the file name? It's original, so we just hit enter. Clear the screen, and now we're going to run a sudo apt update. And now notice this time they're HTTPSs and not HTTPs. So now we're actually downloading the packages from these repos over a secured HTTPS connection. All right, so as this says right here, we can run this command to see what is currently upgradable. We do not need to do sudo to get a list, so we can just do apt list. And I just typed --u and hit tab because that's the only one that starts with the U. When we hit that, it gives you a list of commands that it's going, or packages that it's currently going to upgrade, which is grub, some Python libraries, looks like Perl and Python itself, and then Thunderbird's going to be upgraded to. Well, that's fine and dandy. We can go ahead and do that. Sudo apt upgrade. Now at this point, since we've already looked at the list, if we approve the list, we can just put a -y behind it and it will do it automatically. If you don't put that Y on there, it's not going to assume yes. What it will do is list those packages out again. We're going to save some time and just let it do its thing. And since this upgrade really isn't part of the video itself, other than the fact that we just really have to run it, we're going to go ahead and pause, and I'll be right back. Okay, that didn't take too long, and since none of those packages are really important enough to cause runtime problems, we're not going to reboot. If you're unsure, go ahead and reboot. In fact, the most sensitive one in there is probably the grub update, but that only occurs during reboot, or during boot, I should say, so it's not going to bother us to leave it there for now. The next thing we want to do is I want to show you how to add a third-party repo. There is really only one that I personally use, and that is for multimedia files. And the reason why that's important with Debian, and perhaps not so much with other distributions, is that Debian, especially as it gets stable, the packages become further and further behind, and sometimes you need more up-to-date multimedia packages like codecs and applications like VLC or OBS Studio, like I'm using to record here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to this website. It is deb822.org. We're going to minimize those. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down to where we install the repository and its keyring. This keeps things nice and secure. If you can't read this, that's fine. I'm just copying this one line. And when I paste it into our terminal window, we can talk about it from there. Okay, so Control L clears the screen. Shift Insert will paste what I just copied. So this line says wget HTTPS www.deb822.multimedia.org pool. Anyway, it's pulling in its keyring. That way we know that they're secured packages, they're signed and that kind of thing. You never want to copy and paste off of the internet just because somebody said so. We need to understand what we're copying and what we're pasting. And wget is just a file retriever. All it does is it retrieves files from the internet, and then the HTTPS and so forth all the way down to the .deb is the full URI path for the file that we're getting. So we're going to go ahead and enter, let it download. The next step we need to do is to get rid of that. We want this line right here. And same thing, once I get it in a terminal, you can read it a little better. Control L clears the screen, Shift Insert pastes the line. So now we're going to install it. That's where we do the sudo D package, which is Debian package is what that stands for. It's an installer. The -i just means to install, and then it lists the name of the Debian package we're about to install. And that's that. If we clear the screen and do an ls, we see that package that we just downloaded right here. And now that it's installed, we can actually remove it. It's rm-rf. Okay. And when we do an ls, it's not there anymore. We don't need it. We only have to install it once. All right. So we'll go back over here. I'm going to maximize this screen a little bit. So what we want to do now is we want to do another sudo apt update. That will add, actually, it isn't added yet, my bad. So what we're going to do is we need to scroll down and find our distribution. Currently, Bookworm is stable. We're actually looking for Trixie. That's going to be the next one. And what we're going to do is we need to add code to this file. Just hang out with me for a second. I know there's a lot of questions coming. I'll explain here in just a second. I'm going to sudo nano, and we want to edit this file, etc apt sources.list.d dmo sources. Okay, if you notice this .d on the end of that sources.list.d path, that says that apt supports something called drop-ins, and drop-ins are a way for you to create customized files that are loaded into drop-in aware applications where you're not overwriting the system files themselves that come from the maintainers. Because when you do that, when you go and upgrade the system, it's going to overwrite with the new maintenance files. It's going to overwrite all of your customization, which can be a bad thing. So there exist drop-ins. So you create your own custom files that the application, in this case apt, will read those in addition to their maintainer files. So as a general rule of thumb, you do not want to edit the maintainer files. You want to create your own, and that way your customizations are not erased when things get upgraded. And apt is not the only application that supports drop-ins. SSH is another one that does it, and that is for another video when we go and customize our SSH installation to kind of harden and lock down people's abilities to get into our system. All right, so here I'm just going to go ahead and hit enter because we're creating a blank file, and we want to add these lines here. Again, we're not going to blindly copy and paste. We're going to understand everything that's on here. So on here we have our types, which is deb, our URIs, which is this web page right here, this website. Notice it already has HTTPS. So basically we're looking for deb types on this website, and we're looking for Trixie packages in these repos. Okay. Now, if you remember, the first thing we did is we added our multimedia key. This is the path, the file path to that key, and this just says whether they're enabled or not. Here in a little bit, we're going to talk about how this has changed. Debian 12 uses an older version. Debian 13 uses this newer version called deb822 formatting, and that's what this file here is. This is the 822. There also includes a tool that we can use to migrate or convert from the files from the older type to the newer type, so you don't have to do all this by hand. But here in a few minutes, we're going to discuss the differences between the old and the new. Actually, let me do something here real quick while I have this open. Let me pull up a new tab, and I don't need a sudo because I'm not really going to edit anything. I'm going to pull up our current lists, or list file here, and notice on here, you can ignore this big red banner down at the bottom that just tells me I don't have permission to change it. That's fine. Here's your deb, right? This is your type. Over here, here's your type, deb. Here's your URI, https://deb, deb.org, Debian. Here's your URI. Notice the same information is here, it's just formatted a little bit different. Okay, here's your branch, which is Trixie. Here's your branch or suite. Components, main and non-free. Main and non-free firmware. It just depends on where you're getting your information from. The name of these repos or the name of these might change a little bit, but the concept is the same. So this is the old format that Debian 12 and before used. This is the new format that is moving forward, starting in 13 as the default. Newer versions of Debian 12, the latest release is 12.11. Newer versions of the current stable branch can also use these same files. They are aware of deb822. So if you want to start with stable currently, you can go ahead and start changing these file formats for you. So when you do upgrade to Debian 13, they're already in place. So let's go ahead and close this file. No, cancel. I don't want to close the terminal. I want to close the window. Oh, I'm sorry. It's talking about nano. Okay. Control X and then Control D to get rid of that. Okay, so here's the new one. We are going to Control X. We are going to save that buffer, and we're going to save that file. Now notice this is in list.d. Let's go ahead and navigate to that directory for a minute. Apt sources. Actually, before we do that, let's back up a little bit. We're just going to go to cd etc apt and do an ls. apt.conf.d, auth.conf.d, changes.conf.d, all these have .d directories in them. So that means if you are using anything like preferences, we'll get to that in a little bit, probably in the next video. You can put those in drop-in directories as well, so you're not changing these core files anymore. That makes sense. However, today we're looking at the sources. So we're going to go into there. Control L clears the screen. And when we look at the list there, the first one we have in here is dmo.sources. That's the file we just created. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here is let's go ahead and modernize this and change that previous file that we looked at, the sources.list file, into the new .sources deb822 format. To do that, we're going to do a sudo apt modernize-sources. Now this is a new ability with apt. This is not a one-off conversion wizard. You can run this anytime you want, as many times as you want. And you don't need anything behind it. That's the complete command right there. And when you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to tell you what it's going to modernize. It says the following files need modernization, and it's going to be our default sources file, and it tells you exactly what it's going to change. So we're going to go ahead and hit yes for yes, and it just told you that it now wrote sources.list.d/Debian sources. Well, let's test that theory. If we do an ls, sure enough, there it is. There's the Debian.sources. Let's take a look at that. We just looked at the old one that had the 6 lines in it. So let's take a look at that one. Okay, got some comments in here. It's modernized from this file. Got our deb, our sources, our URI, our suite, the components, and the key ring itself of where it's been signed by. That's excellent. So let's go ahead and get out of that. Control L clear the screen. This time when we do a sudo apt update. All right, so it looks like it's a longer thing than it was. Before it was just these first 3 lines. Now, since we added our deb multimedia, it's going to pull in some more stuff. There's 38 packages that can be upgraded. Let's go ahead and get that list. Oh boy, that's a whole bunch of stuff. All right, so we're going to go ahead and Control C. And since that was really kind of difficult to read all of that, when we do our sudo apt upgrade, now we have a nice, neat formatted. It's going to say this is the packages that are going to be no longer required, so we can sudo apt remove them when we want. These are the files it's going to upgrade. These are the dependencies it's going to install. It's upgrading 38 packages, installing 24 new ones, removing 0, upgrading 0. It's going to download 36.1 megabytes, and it's going to need 25.1 megabytes out of 229 gigs that are available. So it's only going to use this much more disk space is basically all that it says. I'm going to go ahead and hit Y. And while that's running, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video. Okay, that didn't take long. It's only a couple seconds. We are going to go ahead and Control L, CD, enter. That takes us back to our home. So basically in this video, if we go back to our desktop, and notice nothing's changed. We haven't really done anything to make it look prettier or anything like that. Basically what we did is we installed our transport HTTPS package so we can download packages securely. We did our first update and our first upgrade. And we found that there wasn't any important packages in there that required a reboot, such as a new kernel or anything like that. There were no new video drivers or anything. It was just some other stuff that we were not going to use for this video anyway. We discussed the new deb822 format. And we installed our first third-party repo, which was deb-multimedia. And then we modernized those sources so they're all synchronized, or should I say commonized across the platform. All of your repo files, your source files look the same now. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. We do have another part to this because there's a lot to talk about, and I don't want you to sit here and watch an hour and a half long video just going all of this stuff, especially if you're brand new to Debian. You're my target audience. So we can move you from the type 1 distribution to the type 2 distribution, and we're using Mint as our base. That's what we're doing our comparisons to. But anyway, in the next video we will look at package management mastery. Once you manage this package manager, you can master the entire operating system. Until then, I will see you in the next one.